Welcome Cosmic Comics, Games and Collectibles, your zen of geekism. We carry comics old and new, magazines, toys, games like Pokemon, Magic, D&D. Want Godzilla, Ultraman, Star Trek, Ninja Turtles, Funko Pops? You'll find it all here. Shop our Cosmic Sound Room and pick up a record or two. Enjoy our Comic Coffee Lounge with a cup of Sasquatch coffee or a delicious menu item while geeking out over a super cool movie on our big screen. Come by and say hello to Maui. Cosmic Comic, Games and Collectibles. Superman loves us, and so will you.
Hi everyone, Daphne Lage here. Join Nita Lanning and me on the Ragin' to the Vlogs show, where we talk about everything, nothing, and all the bits in between. Looking for hour-long conversations about indie comics, social media marketing, and crowdfunding, with the occasional rant and story time? Head on over to the Ragin' 2 channel on YouTube, Mondays through Fridays at 11 a.m. Eastern to join in the chat.
Hit the button.
A whole belly full, but I'll just take whatever the bottle gives me. Good evening, everybody. I am RJ Carter, Senior Managing Editor here at CriticalBlast.com, and you know the rest if you've been here at any time today. We set off a stream at 12 noon, 1 p.m. Eastern, the usual 1 hour interview that we do with creators, and 4 hours later, we were saying goodbye. So that was a monster stream we did today with Lucifer Storm and Hart D. Fisher, which explains why it went long. If you've done an interview with Hart, you know what you're getting into, and I knew it was going to go long. I didn't know it was going to go that long. I didn't know it was going to involve that many Jack and Cokes the entire time either, but it was fun, and we're going to have some interesting things come out of that. This is, of course, the LCS Guys Show, and with us tonight we have Mr. Michael Tierney from Little Rock. Michael, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing there, RJ?
I'm doing well. You might just crackled there. I hope that's just a startup issue thing, because sometimes it sticks around. Oh boy, here we go. We got static crackle going, but I don't know what causes that.
Any better?
Nah, not really. We'll live with it. Also joining us, we have our creator guest, Chris Demulovich, the man behind Trolls Exposed.
Good
Chris?
evening. I hope I'm not cracking.
No, you're not. You're not. And I've got to find out what you're doing for a background there, because that looks fantastic. Looks like you're getting ready to do a clean album cover. That's solid black.
Does it look? Yeah, I was going to say, does it? It's a green screen, but I didn't put anything on, so it's coming through as just a black backdrop.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Thank you.
So,
Is mine any better?
no, you're still crackling, man. I don't know what's going on.
You look beautiful, though.
Yeah, video's great. The audio is just like what? It's like my old '77 Nova when I turned the radio up all the way and the dashboard would kind of rattle with it. Oh, that sounded pretty good, actually.
So not any better still, huh?
Oh no, not any better at all.
Try a couple more things there.
It's weird. It's almost like it's peaking when you get a little louder. Like it's really clear when you're soft, and when you get louder, it's almost like it's peaking out.
Yeah, it's going maximum volume. Hey, Robert Roberts is in the chat. Welcome, sir. We are just trying to get some volume adjustments here that were not a problem in pre-show. They did not happen. They did not happen until we started. And again, it's probably that whole StreamYard's
love for iOS.
yes.
So I'm still crackling, huh?
Yeah, you are. It's unfortunate, but
Let me leave and try coming back.
try copying the link and pasting it in. Yeah, the Chrome. Yeah.
Hi, RJ.
Hey, Chris, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm really excited about your topic tonight.
It's some of it's going to be funny and some of it's going to be ouch. But yeah, it's something that's been going on for years. People always trying to. Well, it's like those Disney covers. Everyone's always pointing out, hey, did you notice what the clouds did here in this Disney scene that went by quickly?
I think it's cool though. As a creator, like I don't think we hear enough about this stuff.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Wow.
Oh my God. It's.
But now I can't hear you.
Really
bizarre.
I can't hear a word.
Oh.
One more try.
Oh.
Where's
that happy medium?
It might behoove him to get like some earbuds or something. That might be what's happening.
It could be, but that was interesting though. That was the clearest I've heard him on this show since he started.
It's a nice subplot. I just wish it was, more entertaining.
Exactly.
But yeah, the whole thing about content, it's really hard as a creator to sometimes identify what you're doing in a proper context so that someone like Mike would know exactly what he's getting. And I'm excited to hear how to improve that.
Yeah. And honestly, it's not, I don't think you have to get into that much.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Oh,
I can't hear you guys.
Oh.
That is the wackiest thing.
But
what? I think he's showing headphones.
yeah, I knew he couldn't hear me. So I'm like, hey, try these, use these, try some headphones. But Michael and I have had this discussion for years now. And it's not so much a big deal these days because there actually are labels on books a lot. And they're all, now everything's rated T for teen or rated M for mature.
Any better?
You're still sounding great. Can you hear us?
I can hear you this time.
Woo!
We're ready to go. We're ready to rock and roll.
15 times is the charm.
That's right. Well, I was telling Chris how you and I have had this discussion for years about things that were in comics, long before they would finally relented to the whole rated T for teens and rated M for mature, which is just as meaningless as anything else now because they still, it gives them such a wide gamut of things.
Can you believe that they'll reprint Carl Barks, Walt Disney Comics and Stories, and they'll list them as teen level? Donald Duck are for teenagers, not appropriate for younger readers. What?
Well, I know that some of the old Mickeys had him. I remember Pete the Cat was a pirate one time, who was hauling boatloads of marijuana, and Mickey found opium on the boat. So
I remember there was this was from I think it was from, I don't know, from newspaper strips or whatever. It was one of these little one-page shorts where Mickey is getting mad at his nephews, Morty, and I forget who the other one was.
Morty and Dirty.
Okay, their hands were always dirty, and then he looks at, time to eat, he didn't have to wash up so much. And then he looks out the window, and he's so pleased to see them out playing in a mud puddle with plastic bags around their hands, tied at the wrists, and over their heads, tied at the neck.
Yes.
Never been reprinted, I don't think.
I think I've got this plastic bag that I got from Walmart because I wanted to get some straps to hold, my bed sheets on so they quit coming off the corners.
Uh-huh.
And all it says on here is clear and reasonable warning.
Straight to the point.
I mean, what am I being? Is that the thing? Like, don't put your baby's head in this or something? I mean, I don't know what I'm being warned about, but
Yeah.
it's been clear and reasonable.
If you buy a 5-gallon bucket, it'll have a warning that babies could fall in and drown.
Yeah, it will. It'll also have that whole thing, where you're not supposed to put the baby in and put the lid on. They'll draw that.
Yeah.
But it's the reason they do that is because people have done it, and you've got to tell them.
That's the scary thing about there. That's the Darwin's theory is always in full effect.
But when we used to talk about the need for a rating system on comics, do you remember how much creators, not just fans, creators fought back against the very idea of labeling their book with a rating on it?
Well, the original the Comics Code Authority, it went too far. I mean, it was just too aggressive, and a lot of it was aimed at their top competitors. Like they said, okay, EC, those comics sell better than everything else. All right, let's say all these words. Let's pull a word out of every one of the best-selling titles, and you can't use those words in the title. Crime and just all these different things. They just went after it. It was a used as a grinding axe to take out their competition. And Dell Comics. They did just fine. They said, look, we've got our pledge to parents. We're not going to do anything bad in our comics. And they never had a problem. But all the other publishers went through the Comics Code, and they found ways to slip things through. I mean, but nothing like what they do now.
Yeah, you couldn't have red blood, stuff like that.
Yeah. I
As
remember blood in comics back in the 70s. I'm like, wow, I don't know if I've ever seen this before. Whereas the old Submariner comics, you had things where the Nazis would explode a soundless bomb on a beach and just melted everybody into skin bags. I mean, mass murder all over the place, bodies all over. It's like, they were a lot more violent back in the Golden Age than what we got after that Comics Code came in.
As a reader, though, who grew up with the Comics Code, I accepted it and didn't even know there was another world around it. And when it came down, I actually feel like we lost a valuable tool that was just being totally misused. Like, it could have worked, but they made it, like you said, it was drowning out the competition. It was,
right,
not being used to warn parents. It was being used to kill the guy who could sell more.
Yeah, people use it with agendas. Yeah, it's like one of the books I wrote was a 4-volume Edgar Rice Burroughs 100-year art chronology. And I mean, those early Dell comics, that Tarzan, he was ruthless. I mean, if you threatened Jane, if anybody between Tarzan and a threatened Jane, they were dead. I mean, it's like there's so many animals went extinct because they were between Tarzan on the way to rescue Jane. I mean, it just wiped out so many prehistoric animals and people. He just, and he did not like slavers, throw them straight to the sharks. And if he really, really disliked you, he'd call you a rascal. That was bad the language got. Yeah, just rascal. If you're a rascal, oh man, you're in trouble. If Tarzan called you a rascal, you're going down.
It's amazing a savage would even think to use that word.
Yeah.
Remember, he wasn't savage.
The body counts were incredible.
True.
Yeah. Tarzan was never savage. Tarzan was he was raised by apes, but he was also educated by a Frenchman. So in the novel, when he meets Jane, I almost said Foster, Porter, Jane Porter, he can read English because he had the primer that was in his cradle when his parents died. So he had, the ABCs. He could read English, but he could speak French. So it was kind of weird. Yeah, definitely Lord Greystoke. You got it right there. He was nobility. He just had to get his education in, but he didn't forget, all the stuff that he learned living in the jungle. And
I suffer from Tarzan watered down lore.
You got the right guy to talk with about
Amen.
Tarzan.
Amen.
We get to the 60s, though, Tarzan wouldn't kill a fly. I mean, I don't know what. I guess he was a vegetarian. Even he didn't even hardly eat meat until they started doing actual adaptations in the late 60s. And Burroughs had him, killing pigs all the time for something to eat and killing other animals. But he wasn't as ruthless as he was back in the Dale days. And it's kind of funny in the 70s. That's when you started seeing the Renaissance. First, you started seeing like images of blood. First it started out as black ink, then they finally went to red. Then you had introduction of anti-heroes like Conan the Barbarian, who he was a pretty bad dude. I mean, it's like I'm writing a Robert E. Howard art chronology right now, and I couldn't tell you how many times. Okay, Conan killed him. Conan killed the priest. Conan killed the wizard. Conan killed the king. Conan killed all. People die every issue, and usually brutally with a blade.
Well, yeah, Conan wasn't known for his diplomacy. He
was definitely
didn't talk in a lot of situations.
That's what things were shifting. Wolverine was first, starting to come around, although it was really more in the 80s when he really became the big anti-hero, like around, like 129, in Uncanny X-Men. That's where Wolverine really started becoming the Wolverine we know now.
Yeah, and then you're getting characters like the Punisher.
Mm-hmm.
You were getting characters like Morbius, the Living Vampire.
Yeah,
all of these things that would not have happened under the early days of the Code.
Yeah, when Punisher was an all ages comic, he so far outsold the more mature Punishers later. And but it was so refreshing when you had Punisher, because we'd had decades of Batman catches the Joker, locks him up, Joker escapes, kills a bunch of people. Batman catches the Joker, locks him up, he gets loose, kills a whole bunch of people, over and over and over again. Punisher catches a mass murder, bam, he's dead. That's it.
Yeah,
you won't see that guy again.
Yeah, Punisher doesn't have a big rogues gallery.
What's that?
Punisher doesn't have a big rogues gallery because he just they don't recur that often.
Yeah, only very few, and but and he was so popular. People were like, finally, a hero doesn't play games.
Well, Robert, I don't think Morbius is streaming anywhere yet, but soon, because I've already gotten the notices from Sony to get my DVD and Blu-ray copy sent for review. So they usually release it for streaming about a week before the disc comes out. So it should happen soon. Michael, the topic we talked about last time you were on, and I said we should make a show about this, is, as a retailer, we talked about the labels. That's because you get books, and oftentimes you won't know what's in them until an angry parent brings it back to your store and says, "Hey, what are you teaching my kid?"
Yeah, exactly. And you can't go by content. I mean, you have things that look like a funny animal, and it's not.
Yeah, and we've got examples of this on this slideshow I'm going to bring up here in just a second.
There's no such thing as trade press identified, or even publishers. And now, but back when the Comics Code first went away, which it needed to go away, it was obsolete, and but nothing came to replace it. And I think it was Frank Miller who said that him and some other guys, when they first pushed at the walls, they were surprised how easily they fell. But then nothing came up to replace them, and now the roof was leaking and the toilet was backing up. And that was a very fair and apt description of the kind of schlock we were getting. I mean, because the more they would try to do mature comics, the more they seemed like immature comics. Nick Fury walks into a room filled with women, and they all start screaming, "No more, Nick, we can't take any more." Talk about a juvenile fantasy.
Yeah, that was way too much. I think I remember one of the first ones you showed me happened in all places Avengers. I don't know if it was Ultimate Avengers or just Avengers. I think it was just Avengers, because there was no Ultimate Avengers. It was
there was an Avengers written by a guy who's very popular right now. He's
Jeff Johns.
Yeah, Jeff Johns. But here you have basically Ant-Man going to a reduced size to pleasure. I think it was the Wasp.
Yeah.
In a hotel room in Vegas, and comes out with all covered with goo, and okay, your turn now. It's just it's okay. You can do some more in this a little bit, but that was in a comic that it was more of a general audience type of comics.
It was Avengers.
Yeah, exactly. And
it wasn't the Max series either. It was where you would expect that kind of thing, because with Max you started playing around with, well, if I was Spider-Man and I could do this, then we'd be doing stuff on the ceiling sometimes because I could.
But and see, that week that came out, like the current issue of Batman had Batman where he was like you had a rapist unzipping his pants, and Batman having to talk with like a prostitute, and how she said she's not able to affect him with her charms, and he's like, "Oh yeah, trust me, you are." And she goes, "Well, it's hard to tell." And he goes, "It sure is." And just different things like that, got flipping his meat on the burner and talk about how hot it's getting, so that week. Okay, that's the current issue of both Batman and Avengers. In comes the military customer. "Hey, I want to start reading my kid on comics. Let me have the latest Avenger." "You may not want to start with that." So I show it to him. He's like, "No, I'm not starting with that one." "All right, let me have Batman." He walked out. He's like, his kid didn't get to start reading comics because that was what was available for sale at that time. I mean,
they did it with Spider-Man.
Just really missed the boat.
There was an issue of Spider-Man where it opens up. Peter's laying in bed, and it's all kind of silhouette. He's got his hands behind his head, and he's bemoaning, the state of things. He's like, "I can't believe this is happening, and I don't know what I'm going to do about this." And it's like the full length of the bed, and he's just laying there. And then the panel before last, the new silhouette is Mary Jane rises up, and her head is basically above his crotch, and she says, "I'm kind of busy down here. A little appreciation would go a long way." And he's like, "You're right." And then it just, and it was like, "Oh, that's going on." And,
yeah. That's there's one thing about innuendo. I mean, innuendo's always been there, but then there's a line that you can cross where there's just it's beyond innuendo, and that's when you're going to get a retailer thrown in jail. And,
yeah, innuendo can be funny depending on how quickly it gets caught. This is one of the covers that you sent me here, and
yeah,
this one's on the most tame side of things. I mean, they're especially when
you've been Mardi Gras week in Smallville. Because he's there scoping out underneath everybody's clothes. There's Lionel Lang standing right there. Well, if he's catching what's underneath Superboy's clothes.
Yeah, it's like if you were a stranger in Smallville, was Clark Kent going to just check out your skivvies? Because why else would you turn your X-ray vision on? And never mind the fact their line of sight doesn't quite follow the lines of beams that were drawn on there. It's almost like they're looking down at each other's belt line.
Yeah.
the Silver Age, folks, the wonderful Silver Age of comics. This one took me a while to get. Because I'm looking at them like, I don't see what's drawn in here. I don't see the problem. And then my comics history started saying, hey, you know who these people are, right? So you've got this one of these future stories in Superman's pal. And it's the son of Jimmy Olsen is dating the daughter of Superman. Okay. What's the problem?
Who's the boss?
Yeah. The problem is that Superman married Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen married Lucy Lane. They're sisters.
Kissing cousins. First cousins.
Kissing cousins. So it's... and I saw that, I'm like, oh, well, maybe they repealed that law in the future because it's the future. Hey, Eric the Guapo, good to see you out there, man. Thanks for stopping in. So yeah, kissing cousins.
So yeah, they've always been slipping stuff past the censor. I mean, that's
I gotta wonder if they just didn't even think about that.
What's that?
I gotta wonder if they just didn't even think about the family relations on it, like, or caught it late and like. Yeah, no one will think about that. It's Superman and Jimmy, not Lois and Lucy, but it's Lois and Lucy.
Yeah, there was another one. I couldn't remember what it was, but you could tell the way they got it past the censors was in the background. There's a big old sign, but you could tell the artist had to redraw it because obviously it used to say drugs on the sign. Well, they had to change it to make it rugs. All of a sudden, it's got an extra big R. It just doesn't fit right. And you're like, okay, that's how they distracted him. Like, you can't have the word drugs on the cover, and they didn't see what was going on in the foreground. And I forget what it was going on in the foreground there. But that was another one where they slipped one past.
Have to check that one out. This one's pretty obvious.
Yeah, that's a happy robot.
That's a happy robot, and Granny is just bent over. A good representation of the characters. I mean, that looks like Buddy Ebsen and Max Baer and Donna Douglas. But yeah, he's 1963 or 68. I can't tell.
Well, that was Dale. They didn't have weren't by the comic school. They were their pledged appearance. And Granny had no objections.
Oh my goodness. This next one. Chris, this is my favorite because this one's going to be one that we were actually buying comics for at this age here.
I sold that when it came out new. Obviously, I just looked right past it. I didn't read Alf, and just like, okay, Alf, Animal, whatever. Just threw it on the shelf, sold that right away. Never had it in back issue. If you look that baby up online, you're going to be paying several $100s for a copy nowadays. That is like one of the more sought after, modern age comics there is out there right now.
Yeah, because I mean, you look at it and your brain said he's riding that seal, but you look at the seal's tail and it doesn't go under his butt. He's porking that seal from behind.
Well, and look at the caption. Even it's caution: do not buy if safety seal is missing. So hurry up already.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I think I got a recall on this one. I may not have even ever gotten copies of that. I don't know. I certainly didn't remember the book until somebody said, "Hey, check out that issue of Alpha Online." Like, holy.
I'm gonna check my collection, see if I got it, because
It's hard to believe it was canceled.
Oh, after 48 issues? I mean, this thing ran for a while. 48's a long run for Marvel.
Yeah. Well, it is now, isn't it?
Definitely it is now.
Yeah.
I don't know who Manic is, the guy who did the cover. I have not seen his name around before.
Maybe a reason you haven't seen it since. I don't know.
Yeah. Now, this one was sent to me by Larry, and this is a page from Marvel's Voices that's coming out here. And again, granted that it's Voices, we know what to expect for the most part. And if you're looking at this, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's a Marvel's Voices thing. But Larry pointed out to me the fact that the thing that people could be taking issue with is that this is Hercules kissing Marvel Boy, who is a younger character. He's not, Mr. Marvel or Marvel Man. So there's that,
kind of like the Bill Jemas written Rawhide Kid, where you had the Rawhide Kid sitting around in leather underwear with a whole bunch of underage boys at a campfire.
Yeah. That was one of the first books I think everybody kind of, recoiled at, and they're like, they're doing what? Why? Mm-hmm. And it was only a 4-issue miniseries, wasn't it? It was a short run.
That's 4 issues too many.
Yeah, it was intentionally short.
It did not sell. Nobody wanted to buy it.
No, it was. Was it like following up on the tail end of Brokeback Mountain? No pun intended there.
Could be. I don't know.
I think it. I want to say it was, because it Brokeback Mountain was this huge hit, and Marvel said, "Let's do a Brokeback Mountain. We don't have any cowboys. You take one, make one."
So they picked Rawhide Kid.
Yeah. Well,
that's it.
This is, I don't know which episode, which issue.
This is Conan the Barbarian number 37. And in his own biography, Barbaric Tales, or autobiography, talked about making this, how he asked Neil Gentry, "Hey, Neil, did you intentionally make that slug's face look like female genitalia?" And he said Neil just kind of grinned and like, "Ha, cop," and didn't say anything. And, it's that was like the top-selling issue of Conan the Barbarian for a lot of years.
I bet. So yeah, that was just sort of a sly art slide. Yeah, not obviously not meant to be what it is. But when we get to Conan and the Songs of the Dead, Joe R. Lansdale, Timothy Truman, both great creators, love their stuff. Things were a lot more exactly what they looked like to be.
Yeah, see, that's, is that an amulet around your neck, or are you just happy to see me? That is a phallic part hanging from Conan's neck, snapped off of a statue. And,
which is there's right here. It comes
image
right
there,
out
that's the part that got snapped off. Now, I was selling this in my store. Now, I'm a Conan collector. I was buying them, but I wasn't reading them at the time, so I had no idea. Fortunately, I know no kids ever saw it in my stores because Dark Horse would not put any kind of guidelines on the book. So I treated every one of their books like mature. Had them all bagged and taped where nobody could see into them in the shelves. And they'll say, had bought it and taken it home. So I was safe there, but still, I'm working on my chronology, and now, okay, I want to finally read this thing. And I'm starting out with nice compliments of Joe Lansdale. They all talk about how he and I are only 2 members of a very exclusive club of guys who have both completed a Tarzan short story that was started by Edgar Rice Burroughs. And then I got to this, and I was like, what the? I mean, that could have literally landed me in jail because, I've been fighting censorship and, censorship laws for a long time. And I'm in areas that are zoned where I can't have anything considered X-rated or triple X-rated in either one of my locations that I had. And one of the things that will always be considered triple X, I mean, there's no suggestiveness about it, is when you have an erect penis. I mean, that's over the line. That's right up there with actual depictions of intercourse. And that's,
and you can't even say that it's a statue.
That's nothing flaccid about it.
Yeah, and you can't even say that, well, it's a piece of rock, because nothing about this statue tells you that it's carved from stone. This could be a monster just crouching there, waiting to strike.
Really happy to see it, yeah.
Yeah. So Conan, he breaks this off, and he wears it around his neck.
Now
Yeah,
your
well, the guy broke it
location
off.
is
But then Conan just wore it around his neck through the whole series.
Well, Chris?
Little Rock, Arkansas.
Yeah, I had one in Little Rock
Yeah.
and another one in North Little Rock. Now, my store in North Little Rock was directly across the street from a church that held the Southern Baptist National Convention one year. So, yeah,
So
I had people having
big
an
church. And then the other store was very close to a grade school, an elementary
Well,
school.
they're both of them were also close to both grade schools and churches. So I mean, I had the double whammy in both of them. It was just in zoning laws that you can't carry this. And every now and then people would get mad at me because I wouldn't. Well, one, I always had made the decision I wanted a family-friendly environment in my stores, and so that just made it where it wasn't just me being approved. It was like, no, I'm sorry, it's against the law, I can't do anything. But I'd already made the decision. I didn't want to cater to that kind of clientele, and I didn't want parents to ever be uncomfortable about bringing their kids to my store. And unfortunately, then they started really backing off on making anything for kids. I mean, it got down to where I only had like 2 racks at each location that I had stuff for kids that was appropriate for them because it got to make it so little product. Now I'm doing business with Penguin Random House to get my marbles, and they've got a huge selection of stuff for kids. I'm like, man, why didn't I have this kind of a selection offered to put out for sale? Back when I was in business, I had so many kids, I had hardly any product to sell them. And, it's like an ice cream vendor. Okay, we got vanilla, we got chocolate. What else? That's it. Vanilla and chocolate. That's all you got.
You want to twist? We can do that.
Yeah.
Now, Michael has gone into the mail order business now, Chris, because COVID, while Arkansas stayed open, they weren't closing any stores during COVID, at least initially. When Diamond shut down, he had an open comic store paying all the overhead on and nothing new to sell. So
Well, it scared all my employees. So all of a sudden, all my employees quit. I just take it on contracts to write like 6 books in the next year, and all of a sudden, I had 2 locations in 2 cities and nobody but me to work it. I mean, I literally was working half days at each location and then darting across the river to go to the other store. And then you throw on top of that, the fixed expenses. Doesn't matter how long you're open. I had a 5,500 square foot of retail space in 2 cities. And basically, I had to evolve from being a T-Rex dinosaur that was just dominating the market in my state to being a bird. And I just went to bird size, and I've done fine that way. I don't have all those expenses. I've probably done better than I was doing back when I did have the 2 stores because so many of my customers said, mail me your books. And if I tried to do that any other time than during a pandemic, it wouldn't have worked. But as it was the right choice at the right time.
So where's this? Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say the pandemic has changed a lot. Like my wife doesn't food shop anymore. We order the groceries. I'm like, the pandemic is pretty much done. We can go to the store now. Oh no.
Convenience.
Yes. So
I miss going shopping.
I still go shopping. I just go out just to see the sun. Otherwise, I don't move from this spot if I don't get up and go outside. This is where I live, in this chair, and I've got the leathery bits to prove it now. Too much information? Sorry. So Conan wears this around his neck because he's on a quest, a treasure hunt, sort of a thing, and that thing serves as a key. So he takes it from around his neck, and here we go. We're going to open up this little lock by shoving it right in this statue's mouth to get this scroll.
Wow.
Yeah, and as his compatriot says, not good, Conan.
Yeah.
But they get the scroll, and this is where and look at your ancient Sumerian sex doll here. I mean, it's got the round open mouth, like it's like put it right in here, boys. And then my best Ron Popeil. But wait, that's not all you get, because much like your house key, the key that opens the back door also opens the front door, and that key finally leads into a treasure here, and there is the keyhole.
Wow.
Your reaction is like mine when I first thought, what did they do? You're kidding me. I had this on the shelves in my store.
And inherently, I'm not offended by it, but I'm thinking like this is all kind of done in the darkness of the Conan book. Like it's not. There's nothing on the cover to say, mature content. Yeah.
Yeah. If that got in the wrong hands of the wrong person at the wrong time, I'd been labeled a pornographer.
Yep.
I'm a publicly elected official now. There's no way I would have had any kind of political career. Something like that had ever gotten into the news cycle. I mean, like, that had been labeled for life.
Yep.
And I think that's why Truman drew the naked lady right next to it, because like, whoa, boobs distract the well, okay, it's a Conan book, they're gonna have boobs, to get you away from the fact he's getting ready to stick a penis into a vaginal keyhole. So there's that. That was
I was a little bit upset. This was on my shelves, and I had no idea. I'd sold it, and there's stores all around the country right now that probably are the same way. They have it out there in their inventory stock. I did not have a copy of the graphic novel, so when I'm working on my chronology, I had to order a copy. I'm like, oh man, I hope I don't get in trouble for sending that to me by the postal service. And it came through, no problem. But that's the type of stuff that'll get you in trouble. And retailers, we had no opportunity to make a decision. Is this something we want to have in our stores? And it's in stores right now all around the country. And a lot of guys have no idea. It might be in somebody's 50-cent bin. And that's when some kid's going to get a hold of it, like, oh, don't let mom and dad see this. Hey, but come on over, everybody. I want to show you this comic I bought today. You're going to be, where you bought that? Where did you buy that? Okay, well, I'm going to call the prosecuting attorney. And it's an election year.
Oh, yes.
Oh, man.
Bianca Zombie, hello, welcome, dude. Appreciate you being here. This was just a small sampling, of course. I mean, during the time I lived in Little Rock, and you were my LCS guy, we kept finding stuff because it was like coming out with greater frequency. I want to say
it was a good time for me because I was in a battle against censors at that time too.
Yes, you were, because there was a law being passed in Arkansas, and why don't we just run that right now so people can see exactly what was going on. This is about a 7-minute video, guys, so just kind of buckle up, and we'll be back in 7.
How much is too much when it comes to displaying racy materials on store shelves? One group says a new state law goes way too far. We'll cover that debate and the lawsuit related to the case in our top story this Saturday, June 28th. Thanks for joining us for News 4 Arkansas. Good evening, everyone. I'm Linda Stout. Keeping sexually explicit books and magazines out of the hands of children is something most parents probably think about. And Arkansas legislators say they're only trying to help. But some say a new state law not only causes confusion, but is unconstitutional. News 4 Arkansas's Brandis Griffith joins us now to explain. Brandis, what does this law say?
Well, Lyndall, House Bill 1525 says any material harmful to minors must be covered up and placed where minors couldn't have access to it. But a recent lawsuit filed by some booksellers and the American Civil Liberties Union challenges the law, claiming it violates the First Amendment right for adults to have access to those materials. It may be written as plain as black and white, but Michael Tierney says there's still too much gray in House Bill 1525.
There's just too much nebulous language in there. Harmful to minors, how do you define that?
Tierney is concerned that the law means he'll have to start rearranging his comic books to keep the racier ones away from minors.
I'd hate to have a section that says, okay, kids, you can't go over to this part of the store. I've never wanted to have a section like that in my store. I'd never intend to have a section like that in my store because that, if anything, just draws attention to it.
But he's not sure what the law considers too explicit, the cover of an Archie comic or the latest Witchblade.
You look at some of the men's magazines now. I mean, even Cosmopolitan. The covers are suggestive. They're showing a lot of skin.
The bill's co-sponsors say they left the law vague to allow the communities to decide what's too explicit for their children.
It's certainly based on community standards. What might be harmful in Little Rock may be very different from what's harmful in Blytheville.
Tough to gauge, Tierney says, since everyone's opinion is different.
You'll have a mother who says, I don't care how many naked women there are, I just don't want any bad language. And another mother will say, I don't care how much, just exactly the opposite.
The plaintiffs in the lawsuit claim the law is so vague it could include literary classics like The Catcher in the Rye or I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings because of their sexual content. The lawmakers we spoke with today say the law does not apply to materials with any literary value. Lyndall.
All right, Brandis, thanks a lot. Some legislators also add that the law is constitutional because it does not keep adults from accessing the materials in question. A current law already requires that the lower 2/3 of some magazines be covered.
Of whether or not bookstores will have to remove questionable materials from shelves is still unanswered.
Today, the state Supreme Court said a state law regulating explicit materials is intended to protect all children under age 17, and obscene materials should be separated from minors' view. A local comic book store owner said he's hoping he won't have to segregate his store into an adults-only section.
We're all for protecting children from harm, but when you write a vague law that can be interpreted by the minority, deciding what the majority is going to read, it's like trying to legislate parenting.
The federal district judge will still rule on whether or not the law violates the Constitution's First Amendment.
And if that wasn't wacky enough for you, take a look at this woman we ran into. She's lean, she's green, she's a Marvel Comics premier superhero, She-Hulk. Today she stopped by the comic book store in North Little Rock to visit with a few fans and strike a few Hulk poses for the camera. And I love that hairdo.
But that's not something that you can just write a real vague law and say everybody else figure it out. You're just creating a quagmire problem.
Now, the new law could reach beyond just bookstores. Any commercial establishment that does sell even magazines with some so-called racy magazine covers could be considered to be breaking the law, and also bookstores, some or rather public libraries, are worried that they could some kind of way get in trouble with this new law. But coming up tonight at 6, we're going to hear from one legislator who did vote for this piece of legislation. You'll hear exactly what their intent was, and you'll also hear him explain why they may have made a mistake. Karen?
Interesting. Thank you, TJ. Well, the bill was passed by an overwhelming majority in both that state house and Senate. Some businesses in central Arkansas are upset over a new law that goes into effect next week. This story tops tonight's Just Home headlines. The law requires that materials harmful to minors be obstructed from view in commercial establishments, but the owner of a North Little Rock comic book store says there's a problem. You see, the law doesn't say what harmful is. Governor Huckabee says he might wait until Christmas Eve.
Experience CBS News.
Coming up, do your kids need to be protected from comic books?
BJ Sam celebrates 50 years in the broadcasting business.
And areas outside of Little Rock are gold. Next week, commercial bookstores may be on the defensive. A new law goes into effect that could change what materials can be displayed on store shelves. TJ Holmes joins us live from North Little Rock with the details. TJ?
Well, Karen, this law, which was passed overwhelmingly by the state legislature, goes after materials that are harmful to minors. Now, depending on who you ask, even some materials in this comic book store could be considered harmful to minors. Now, the House passed this legislation 77-8. The Senate passed it 33-2. Now, it seems all of those legislators who voted yes could have been wrong. Donald Duck and his nephews may need to put some pants on.
Donald Duck and his nephews. Hey, they don't wear pants. Somebody can say, hey, you got 3 little boys running around with no pants on at Chopper and Arthur. You know, it's insane.
It may sound silly, but it's a real concern for Mike Tierney, owner of this comic book store.
I agree with the concept, always protect children from harm. But you cannot legislate what harm is. That's up to parenting.
A new law passed this session requires that materials harmful to minors be obstructed from view and segregated in commercial establishments. The problem for store owners is that the law doesn't define harmful, which leaves everything up for interpretation.
The law is creating that atmosphere where every bookseller, every librarian is just waiting to see, okay, who's going to complain about what, and you have no idea what is going to be.
Without a definition of harmful, anyone could complain about anything.
We wanted to make sure as a legislature to make sure that minors just didn't have any access to that at all. And that was the true intent of the bill.
Representative Stephen Bright says lawmakers were thinking about magazines with racy covers when they passed the bill. But new concerns may cause them to rethink it.
There could have been a mistake made, but we hope that if there was a mistake made, we hope the system will work itself and correct itself.
I don't see anything harmful with that, but somebody might say...
Tierney is hoping for that correction as well, so Donald Duck and his nephews won't have to put on slacks.
You just have no idea what somebody might complain about, and that's a scary thing.
Now, we did get an opinion today from Mr. John DePippa over at UALR Law School. Asked him about this law. He says there may be some serious constitutional issues here because the law does not define exactly what harmful is. He says there have been other states who have passed laws like this. They've also always specified what exactly is harmful. Now, the Central Arkansas Library System also concerned that if the law stands, there may be some problems that could possibly affect them. And the Arkansas Library Association has, in fact, filed a lawsuit to challenge the constitutionality of this law. So we have not heard the last of this at all, Karen.
Yeah, story to follow. Thanks, TJ. In our Survey Arkansas question today, we asked, in general, do you think comic books are a good influence or a bad influence on children? 45% of you said you think comic books are a good influence on kids. 32% said they are a bad influence and 24% were not sure. Survey Arkansas is a scientific poll of 500 adult Arkansas.
Wow, 32% bad for kids.
Yeah, that was about a 2-year battle in 7 minutes there. And you can see it started to shift. Well, maybe we did make a mistake. And the guy who, Mark Wright, the representative, he got his start in his political career in the seat I currently hold on the Maumelle City Council. That's where I got the seat he used to have. So, cool. I told him, hey, if I got to get into politics, I'll get into politics, and I did.
So did they let the law go into effect without changes and just, amend it later as needed, or?
Well, the law went into effect, but they didn't enforce it. And then there were some challenges to it, and they just basically let it kind of wither away and forgot about it.
So it's technically still on the books.
I think it's off. I think it's gone. I think there was they had to do something to try to keep it on there. And I think at that point they realized they lost the fight and they just let it go. I wrote an open letter to the Arkansas legislature, and I said, listen, guys, I hope you realize that you're not going to be able to have a kid enter a Christian bookstore, because there's this book in there called the Bible, and it's got some scenes in there that, according to the law, the way you got it written, somebody can say, hey, this is not appropriate for children, and so a child will not be able to buy a copy of the Bible according to that law. At that point, they're like, okay, we're going to back off.
I think my favorite segment in the whole thing was where the lady broadcaster is trying to talk about the She-Hulk appearance, and she's talking about Hulk poses, and she sees when she's saying it that your model is bent over, showing her Hulk butt.
Lay that on camera. That was actress Allison Gordy, and she was super. She did her character appearance at my store, and so they said, okay, this is what time it's going to run. So we both left my store to go home and tried to record it on my DVR, or actually it was VCR back then, old tapes there. And so here we both come pulling up to my house, my truck just screeched into a quick halt, stop me and this green lady go rushing into the house as fast as we can. And about a half hour later, we go back, walked and casually got in the car and drove away. Nobody ever asked me what was the deal. We were in such a rush to get inside the house, and then real casually left on the wall later.
People don't pay attention.
Well, they just made up their own stories about what was going on.
You just don't question the situation with She-Hulk. It's like, whatever happens stays there. I don't want to know.
Yeah, it was so funny because when I sold that house, the people bought it. Said all the neighbors said such nice things about you. Said you were a really good dad. That all your daughters used to come by and visit you all the time. I'm like, that was the girls I was dating. I wasn't that much older. I wasn't old enough to be their dad, so.
Michael's a player. Didn't know this. Well, so there's a show in and of itself, dating people when you're a comic shop guy, and they find out. How do you deal with that? Yeah, this is what I do. I sell comic books.
Yeah. Well, I was used to tell everybody it wasn't really too much of an exaggeration. I said, I wish all my old girlfriends were posing for those covers.
So what's the best way to warn an LCS owner about your content? Like you were saying in the pre-show, say as much as you can. Do we go to the point where we granulate it down to politics and stuff as well? Because I know, like, if you put something too right or too left out there, you're in the world of crap too, even if it's not legalities.
I was always advocating for the system basically they're using at Marvel and DC now of target audience guideline. What's the age of the target you're shooting at? And then if you get into mature, then kind of give us a little idea, what made it mature. Like, is it bad language? Is it sexual situation? Kind of like what you're getting with the movie ratings. They wanted to use the movie ratings for a while. They found out, no, those are owned by the movie association. We can't appropriate their rating system. And so they tried it for a while and quit, and then they went over to the target audience. Okay, well, we'll just say what age group this is aimed at, and that's when Donald Duck became a teenage-aimed book. Donald Duck is appropriate for anybody of any age. Now,
yes.
That's obviously you're erring on the side of caution.
Yeah, but the thing about the rating system now, though, that works in your favor is that say that Avengers issue we talked about, they could rate that teen plus, and I think maybe it even was rated teen plus at the time.
No, they didn't have any kind of rating then. Yeah.
No ratings then, okay. But they could have rated it teen plus, and you could have sold it to somebody, and somebody could have come in and said, look at this, why are you selling this to my kid? And now you have a shield. You're like, I follow the guideline from the publisher that says this was suitable for teens,
right?
Which protects you from having to read every single panel of every single book.
And it gets a target for a parent who wants to, make this a litigation or something. Other than the local guy, they can go after that board and say, "Hey."
Yeah, and so me, I'm on the firing line. And when this whole thing was going on for a couple of years, I had people coming in to my stores looking for something to make me an example for about why they needed that law to protect the children from me. And so I'm trying to be extra careful. And that's when the publishers all had the attitude about, "Hey, banned in Boston. That's free publicity. We'll get a sales bump out of it." Yeah, and you ruin my life while you're doing it. And,
exactly.
If you do what you want, I never told anybody they couldn't make any kind of comic they wanted to make. I just wanted to know about it, so I didn't sell it to the wrong person. And then one fellow said, "Well, every retailer should read every page of every book before you sell it," which A, is completely impractical. Okay, we get them on a Tuesday or Wednesday, put them out for sale on Saturday. That's just not going to work. And then B, they're in the 50-cent bins, kind of like that Conan book we were talking about earlier. Who knows how many cheap bins that's in? Nobody, even if they did read it, they probably won't even remember what was in it. And so I mean, and then those are so many different hands. If you've got little time bombs out there just waiting, like a landmine to go off when somebody steps on it. I mean, you just don't want to booby trap the comic book industry like this, because we don't need that kind of bad publicity. We want to be an all-inclusive industry, and the comics. I mean, the younger people are so interested in it so much. I fought for years to try to get the rest of the industry to realize it was a huge untapped market. When I first opened up, all my customers, everything I sold was appropriate for anybody of any age. Well, they were ignoring the older reader. They finally realized that, started making content for it, but then the pendulum swung all the way the other way, and then everything was for the older reader and nothing for the younger reader. Marvel, even nowadays, whenever they have something that's intended at younger readers, they'll have another publisher make it for them, because it's like they forgot how to do it. And I will say, in Marvel's credit, though, what they're doing now is they're getting away from the cuss words, and they're going back to the classic cuss words of pound sign, exclamation mark, at sign. Just let the reader fill in the cuss words, because when the writers do, all these writers, when they first started making the cuss books, I was like, or books with cuss words in it, it's like, why are they all using the exact same type of language? I mean, anybody who's out in the public knows that, okay, this group of people using a different set of curse words. Everybody's talking like the same group of people. And then I went on a comic book legal defense fund cruise, it was 1999 or 2000. I realized, that's how they all talk. So they just figure everybody talks like them.
Yep.
And writers are supposed to pay attention to different demographics of people, and they didn't do it. They're like, okay, everybody's like me. It's kind of course. Smith. You ever notice how in every Kevin Smith movie, everybody talks like Kevin Smith, except Kevin Smith? Now, the Chasing Amy, which was actually a character played by a North Little Rock girl, she was dating Kevin Smith at the time. She rewrote her own lines. She's like, "I'm not saying that. I'll tell you what I'm going to do." He was dating her at the time. Like, "Okay, honey, you go right ahead." That's why she's kind of a unique character.
Of course, the thing that gets comic book owners in hot water for years isn't necessarily the comic book; it's the Pokemon cards, right, Mike?
Oh, I know. Yeah, this is not crazy. I mean, remember when Michael Vick got in all this trouble for dog fighting, pitting animals and pins to fight each other? What is Pokemon? People pitting animals to fight each other.
Oh, wow.
Has nobody ever stopped to say, "Hey, that's kind of ruined a guy's career because he was doing it"? Is it really obscene? I mean, if you've ever witnessed one, I had a neighbor who had a fight like that one time, and it was the most disgusting thing I ever saw. And they were freaked out because they didn't realize what they were getting their own dog into, and they never did anything like that again. And I mean, it's a pretty horrific thing, and you just don't do that to animals. And it's it's a bad thing. But now we're telling all these kids, pit your animals against each other. Yeah, get this one; it'll really tear the other ones up real good.
Telling him, I actually did that with my son. That became like our digital fishing. We were going to malls for Pokemon shows and getting Mewtwo's and all sorts of weird little Nintendo stuff. And I never even thought of that. Animal versus animal. Holy cow.
Yeah, both of my stores were places where you could walk around my stores. You could get animals off of that too.
Wow.
Yeah, but I was thinking more along the lines of the mother that thought the Pokemon cards were too expensive at that one store. And do you recall that story where she got angry at the shop owner and then had people? This was the guy who got his store closed down because they found obscene comics in it. You know this story, Mike. You know better than I do.
Now, the one I know about the guy who got in trouble and got his store closed down was over in Tulsa, and he had adult-only comics. and but he had kept them in a long locked box behind his counter. And some teenagers found out about it. They wanted to look at it. It was like, you're too young. You can't see these things. We won't show them to you. Well, they got mad, went home, told Mom. Mom's like, they've got what there? She told her friend, who was a prosecuting attorney in an election year. And bam, next thing you know, they were raided the next day. And Frank Thorne's Guido Alazar had little cherubs. You know, they're on Valentine's. But they're in a comic book. That's child porn because it's naked children. And so the headlines came out in the paper the next day, comic book store owners arrested for selling child porn. Nothing could be further from the truth, but once you get that label on you, it doesn't ever come off.
Yeah, the one I was thinking of was a similar story. The mother got in the fight with the owners because she thought the Pokemon cards were too high, too expensive. They were, just breaking people over the coals for it. So she sent in a friend of hers who was not a district attorney, but an undercover police officer. And he went in the adults only section, found an adults only book, brought it out, and put it down in the kids section.
That's another story that actually wasn't to do with Pokemon. That was down in Texas. I think it was Keith's Comics, and he had a customer. He had an adults only section in his store, and he had a customer come in and special order book Uratsudo. I don't know the name of it. Tentacle sex type of stuff.
Demon Beast Invasion's the American name.
Yeah, and so the guy ordered it. Well, it came in for him. The guy changed his mind, dropped it back on the shelf, but it was still in the adults only section. In comes an undercover cop, buys an adult only comic in an adults only section from an adult, and then they arrested him. And the comic book legal defense did their best to launch a very good defense for him. I mean, they probably had 5 days of testimony. Flew in Neil Gaiman. Comics are art, and even Neil said, yeah, you could tell that the jury was just nodding off like, yeah, okay. And then when it came time for the prosecuting attorney, she got up there and said, look, come on, people. There's a grade school across the street. We all know what's going on here. Got a guilty verdict.
Yeah. So
he went to jail.
Wow, jail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They arrested and put him in jail.
How serious that gets. I was when I was younger, I was learning all about the RICO statute applications, where when there's if they found basically if they found bad comics, they shut you down and seized everything in the store, right down to the toilet paper in the back room.
And you have no recourse under RICO.
Yeah. So it was some serious stuff.
Yeah. The penalties and it just could devastate a retailer. You lose everything you've worked for your entire life just overnight. Your reputation is tarnished, just like those guys over in Tulsa. Their wives left them. They tried to relocate the store. Nobody would ever go to that store that sold the child porn, even though it wasn't true. Last I heard, the only work those guys could find was selling Amway products door to door.
Yeah,
and they did nothing wrong. And we're on the firing line out here, and I just hate to be like that guy on the set of Rust, and you picks up a gun, he doesn't know it's got a live round in it. Then he fans the trigger, and it strikes the hammer, and bam.
Well, that's exactly where you guys are at, because creators didn't want to take responsibility for it. They wanted to do anything they wanted, and once they sell it to the publisher,
right,
my hands are clean. I'm done with it.
I was told I was being a censor, and I was told my customers were all being Nazis because they wanted influence over what their children were. I said, okay, well, that's it. Discussion's over now. Once you bring Nazis into the equation of the argument, you've lost. Because when you start calling my customers Nazis, I'm pretty much done talking to you anyway, because customers are acting in a responsible manner. They're taking an interest in what their children be exposed to. There's nothing wrong with that. And, I have no problem with, helping parents do their job. And when they want their kids to read comics, that's a good thing. Let's help them get the ones that they want and they approve of.
You used to go back and forth online with Kurt Busiek over this whole issue. I remember they were like burying your discussion threads. Like,
we disagreed.
Yes, and we'll just leave it at that. But Chris, to your point, I think that Michael's idea about just following the movie guidelines is fine. I don't think you have to say what the political leaning of any character is. No one. People will figure that out from the story.
I think half the adventure in a story is kind of discovering that, but with things so polarized, like I wasn't sure, should there be a warning? This is a pro-Trump book or a pro-Biden book. Does that really affect it that much?
I sold both in my store.
Right.
As a retailer, I don't care what somebody's political interests are. If they've got an interest, my job is there to get them the books they want to read.
Right.
And as long as I'm not violating any state or local statutes, I don't care what it is. I'm just my job is to put the books you want to read in your hands. And the same thing if it's a kid or if it's a parent buying for a kid, get them what they want. That's all I need to know. Yep. And but who knows? When you say this is got it's a mature book, and you kind of is it mature because of situations, nudity, whatever? There might be somebody who likes that type of stuff. Like, hey, you like this? Here, this is going to be your cup of tea right here. I mean, it's just help us sell to the right person. That's all I ever wanted to do.
Yeah, I just wouldn't overanalyze it. Go with the basic, sexual situations, nudity, drug use.
It doesn't have to be so nuanced that you're giving away every detail of the book. Otherwise, you could just give away a preview copy and say, "Here you go. This is all for you." And now you're reading everything again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, before we sign off here, Chris, would you like to, tell people about the book that you're working on right now, which is Trolls Exposed?
Sure. Yeah, real briefly. It did finally get over the 500. That's wonderful. Thank you, guys. It's an anthology, which I'm trying to find a better term for because I hear anthology kills sales. But it's an anthology about trolls, basically from the flood to internet times. Currently, there are 9 stories in it. It's all set to be deadline next week. And then it'll be ready for press. But the campaign closes in 16 days. So, yeah, if you're into unique and awesome stories, this has a bit of dark humor and some horror elements. It's definitely mature. And feel free to jump over, check it out, and perhaps back it.
I still love that picture of the... I'm going to copy the link here.
Cool.
Throw it in the chat so that people can hit that up. But they can always find it on Indiegogo just by searching Trolls Exposed and finding it.
Yeah.
But this image here with the troll turning over giant rocks, he's got trees growing out of his back just to give the immensity, the size of this thing. That's a gorgeous picture. I love the green wash on it and everything.
I truly believe that's the sleeper story of the book. My daughter is illustrating that. My wife wrote the story. And she's such a fine artist, professional artist, college graduate, does murals and commissions and all sorts of things. And we bribed her into doing the book, and it is coming out mad, insane, awesome.
Well, speaking of mad, insane stuff, and see, here's your internet troll.
Yes, she's but there is no adult stuff in that story. She is a little bit of a flasher, but not yeah. We don't do the Conan thing.
No.
Thank you.
Here we go. The Chris Mad cover.
Yes. This was funny because when I commissioned him, I didn't realize he normally takes 8 weeks to do a cover. And he was like, "So when's the book launch?" And I told him, he was like, I let me work on this a little quicker. So we got it halfway through the campaign, and I'm just so pleased with it. It's going to be so awesome. I'm picturing in conventions on a shelf. That's just going to look beautiful as a cover. So I'm really psyched.
Yeah, the story on this, Mike, was that this cover represented none of the stories in the book. So Chris was so taken with the cover, he had to write a story that matched the cover because he's like,
Yes.
okay, we're adding a story to this.
Yeah, because I asked him just to draw what he saw as a troll in his head. And he came up with the 3 trolls, which is, traditionally part of the whole lore. And I was like, okay, we don't have a 3 troll story, therefore we need a 3 troll story. So it came right away. It works well, and I can't wait. It's a good story.
It was the 3 trolls, and I just totally blew my page up there. And for scale, here's this young blonde woman right down here. It's like, she's barely at their knees. So.
They are definitely the classic mountain-style troll. Whereas other places in the book, for instance, Rick Piper does a story in the book, and his trolls are probably 3 feet tall, and they attack in mass units, versus these big, 3 trolls. There's not a whole tribe. There's 3 of them. Hostess cupcake commercials.
Yeah, you're doing Happy Troll Cake ads in the book as well.
Yes.
So, nice throwback to our youth
And I've done those before with other characters, but I actually have the Troll Cake story worked into one of the stories in the book. So it made sense to sort of make some advertisements for it. And I miss the Hostess Cupcake stories. They were stupid, fun, and 1 page long,
You know what they were? And the thing is that, today they've got those Snickers ads. And sometimes those Snickers ads are more compelling than the rest of the book that they're in. It's like, oh, seriously, I was reading a book. I was like, and I turned the page. I'm like, oh, this is different. This is actually pretty good. This is a big fight. Oh, this is a freaking Snickers ad. The bar had been set so low that the Snickers ad elevated the reading. Like, okay.
Well, I always tell creators one thing they should try to do is do some of these on your own, because it sounds silly, but 1 page to just get a start, beginning, and an end squeezed in is pure comic. That's cartooning at its best.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, I think we've reached the end of the show. I'm out of topics. I can't think of anything else that happened this week. Although it's not an LCS Guys show if we don't ask, since the last 2 weeks, what's selling and what's not. Now, Michael has only got what's selling because he only buys what his customers say. Get me this now. So you don't have anything stuck on your shelf.
Yeah, I know. I'm selling out of everything, but yeah, it's really been kind of scary though about how little product has been coming out. So many titles are getting delayed. When I shipped all my orders last month, it was the smallest orders I've shipped in the 2 years since I went over to a mail order model. I mean, it's just like no product was coming out. When I went to ship it, I hardly had any packing to use. Usually I get so much packing I have to throw it away in addition to reusing it to ship out. And I almost ran out of packing and I didn't throw any away the whole month. I mean, it's just like, man, what's this? Are they just shutting it down now and just not telling us? I mean, I had never seen so little product come out in a 2 month period ever, probably since back in the early 80s when they just, I don't know, I think they made more product back then. I mean, it's they're just not putting much stuff out right now.
There is a lot of discussion and speculation that the guy who's the CEO at Discovery is coming in with a big bloody axe and is going to start laying waste. He's already.
Well, even Marvel though, they're delaying a lot of their titles. They're not putting much stuff out either.
Yeah. So how'd your free comic book day go today, Michael?
I always have people ask free comics, since I didn't have it, there was a couple I bought just to give out to a few people who I know they want all of that title. So I'm going to, get them the free comic books for them, just in that case where they were already getting the regular titles. And like Turtles had a comic in it, had a new story. So I got that one and distributed that out. And then I had some other people order some stuff, Legend of Zelda or something. I don't think that was it, but something like that. And I had a few people buy, some of them there. So, but yeah, it's, obviously I didn't have a lot of people show up for Free Comic Book Day. I'll tell you what, that used to be a nightmare that then turned into a great thing when I stopped being listed on their website. Because it just brought in this really bad crowd of people just gimme. I think I told you about how 1 year I actually had somebody file a police report against me for not giving away enough free stuff.
Yeah. Because
was investigated by the police.
Yeah, people knew it was Free Comic Book Day, and because they'd come into the store and they thought they could just pick any comic, and it's like, give me that Fantastic Four #1 off the wall up there. I'll take that one.
Every year by somebody, at least one person. And but what was bad is there used to be a chain store out here, and they would just put all the books out that they got in on a table. Bam, they were gone in 20 minutes. Take whatever you want, and everybody just clear them out. In 20 minutes they're out, and everybody come into my store. I'm giving away books all day to everybody, but I limited it to 3 books a person. And they'd be coming in, they'd be bragging about how great those other guys were and how terrible I was, even though I was giving away the entire day at 2 locations. I mean, I was giving away 1,000 times more books than what those guys were giving away. But here they were dogging on me. Well, once I stopped being on their website, that crowd wasn't coming in anymore. People actually wouldn't just get out of there as fast as they could to get away from the bad vibes. They were like, hey, maybe I'll grab and buy something. He's got a sale going on. And all of a sudden it turned into one of my best days of the year. But I had to stop being listed on the Free Comic Book Day website to turn it into a good event. And the first time it was because they started making you have to buy mature audiences only comics to be eligible to be on that website. I'm like, no, I did that 1 year, had to throw stuff away, and I'm just not a bookworm. I was like, that was just antithesis to the way I think. And so the next year I said, if you're going to make me do that, just fine, won't be on the website. And it was a great event. Customers came in and said, weird things like "thank you" and "I appreciate it." And my employees were all like, "Please don't ever get on that website again." It was just such a difference, a night and day, from just a horrible event to a real positive event. And by doing that, by not being advertised for free on the Free Comic Book Day website, it turned into a great event for me.
Very ironic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I tell them about that, both at Diamond and the guys doing the Free Comic Day thing, about my experience. They're all like, "Oh, well, you're the only one." But for some reason, almost every retailer I talked to about had the same experience and said they told them the same thing too. So they just don't want to hear it. So fine.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Now,
it doesn't matter to me anymore. Do what they want.
I learned this week that Free Comic Book Day was actually a Diamond sponsored thing. It wasn't just like, somebody came up with it and it's running itself autonomously. And the way I learned that was I went to their website and I was like, wait a second, there's no DC comic on here. Is DC doing so badly that they're not doing Free Comic Book Day stuff? And it's because DC pulled out of Diamond, so DC's Free Comic Book doesn't get listed on the Free Comic Book Day page.
But they did make one, but you had to get that from Lunar.
Yeah, and that's the thing I want to ask you about is, that's sort of like when they did Blackest Night, kicked off with a Free Comic Book Day thing, and that became a huge sales success. They're kicking off Dark Crisis now. Dark Crisis #0 is their Free Comic Book Day book. Are you getting interest from your readers? None.
Make more noise. I mean, it's just
nobody cares if Justice League died and all that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a total non-event. I mean, just like you can only do the same thing over and over and over again until people don't care. I mean, if this was a movie industry, we'd be on Jaws 50. This time it's for real. And this time it's really for revenge. You can't keep telling the same story over and over again, and people just get numb. Now when I first started in this industry, remember, I've been doing this for 40 years. Back then, comics were so static. You knew that no matter how wild and how out of bounds the story might go, by the end you'd be back to status quo. Nothing ever changed. And now it's to the point where there is no status quo. There is no firm ground to stand on, and it's making it hard for people to find their way in to read as a new reader. And so now we're gonna have another event. Well, it's an event all the time. It's like no big deal anymore because that's what happens all the time. So it's again kind of like the young comics, older reader comics. Well, it's flipped all the way to all older comics, nothing for the new readers. Well, used to static universe and occasional event. Well, now it's all events and no static at all. So it just goes to extremes in this industry. We don't have any kind of sense of modulation about doing a little bit of everything. It's like when they started making more mature comics, it was all violence, and it's just kind of like if the comic book industry was making the movie about the Lion King. It wouldn't have any singing elephants or dancing hippos. It'd just be all like, "Oh my God, Simba's dead. Oh wait a minute, he's twitching. Oh no, they ran a car over him. Wait a minute, he's still twitching. Now they put a bomb on him." It's just violence, and the highs make the lows lower, and the lows make the highs higher. It's just all one beat, just a steady beat of the same thing over and over again in the comic book industry, and that doesn't have the sense of modulation.
Well, and they've multiversed everything. I mean, DC always had a multiverse, and it was like every summer you would see the Justice League comic would have the Justice Society visit from Earth 2, and there'd be some reason why they would do this. And it would be, a mini event, but it was like a highlight, and it was always a different kind of adventure. It wasn't like, the universe is going to end. It was just, a convergence of multiverses for this adventure. And then everybody goes home, and, we continue on. Ever since Crisis on Infinite Earths has been like, stakes are high, people die. And the thing is, they kept coming back to where we don't believe it anymore. The Justice League is dead. I read Justice League 75. There goes Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and they all go out, guess what? Exactly the way the Flash did in Crisis, with that sequence of panels where they're getting older and older and their flesh is falling off and they turn to skeletons and then they dissolve, and the panels beautifully drawn. Chris, you even said that the way they represented it is perfect comic representation of something. So I can't fault the execution, but the story itself is like, nobody believes this.
Been there, done that. You can only leave Batman standing at the altar when you said he's about to marry Catwoman so many times, where nobody believes anything you do anymore. You've lost all credibility. And I remember when Superman died. Now that was an event that really worked. Now, they told us they were going to do it. They did do it. Biggest selling comic ever had. I mean, I sold thousands and thousands of that issue, and never came up with any book that ever sold close to that. And I remember I was talking to one of the creators on the series, and he's like, "Well, what do you think's going to happen next?" I said, "Well, obviously you're going to be bringing it back in about a year." And he goes, well, maybe, but you'll never guess how. I was like, well, hey, he's just like a battery. He's just a solar battery. Just needs time to recharge. I don't want to talk about click, hang out. You'll never guess it first guess. Yeah, just right there. And, it was pretty obvious to me, but I write stories, for a living. So, it's, I think in those terms, but I don't think most people would have gotten it. But, so you had a whole year of, is this the Superman? Is this the Superman? Guess what? None of them were.
Yeah.
You can't bait and switch people so many times.
They were entertaining books to read, and it kept people coming back every 2 weeks for a year.
Mm-hmm.
I still have a ridiculous Dan Jurgens story with the robot Superman with the half human face that was torn away. And I love it. It's the dumbest thing, but I read it like every 3 or 4 months when I'm going through my little collection, and it's
Do you know who you're reading when you read the Cyborg Superman?
I don't remember.
You're reading Reed Richards.
Really?
Yes, because the Cyborg Superman was Hank Henshaw. And that goes back to a story that John Byrne did when he came to do Superman right after the Man of Steel miniseries. He came from Marvel to DC. And one of the stories he had was 4 space explorers, a man, his husband, her brother, and their best friend, caught in a cosmic ray incident in this space thing. And one of the things that it did was, it gave them all powers, but it was killing them all. And Hank Henshaw was the only one who survived it, and he blamed Superman for not saving them.
Ooh, interesting. I'll have to go actually collect some back issues there.
Yeah, I'll find that issue for you, because that was and that's why he became a villain for Superman as the Cyborg Superman. And I can't remember who turned him into the Cyborg Superman. It was another villain who grafted bits and pieces onto him, because he was like his own old power was blowing him up and eating away at him. But it was
fascinating.
That was Byrne's way of burning the Fantastic Four behind him, because when he left Fantastic Four, I think the precursor to that was he had She-Hulk holding up a car on the cover, like the Action #1, and that was sort of his hint saying, "I'm leaving, I'm going somewhere. Guess where?"
That was tragic to me, because that Fantastic Four run was, I still love it. Yeah.
And the thing is, if he came back, I don't think it would work anymore, because they brought Chris Claremont back to X-Men, and it didn't. It wasn't there. You just couldn't pick up that momentum and start with what they had, what he had to come in on, and then try to go back to that Claremont, Beatty, Byrne age. And
it's a tough thing to recapture.
But if you do like that X-Men era, just go to John Byrne's website, and because and I don't know if you know this, Michael, but John Byrne is still drawing and writing X-Men on his website from the moment that he left it, as though he had never left it. And it's like, this is where this would have gone. Yes. And he's just releasing it a page at a time. He'll do pencils and then inks. And people are just reading X-Men there. And the way the story widely diverges from where it's at now, you don't care. You're reading Byrne X-Men, and it's like you're back there in the 80s, and these are brand new books that you somehow missed in your collection.
It's beautiful.
It's on that Byrne Robotics website.
That was some good stories.
Yeah. Too bad he can't publish them. He can only have them like on his blog there. And it's not even like you can, I don't know how he's doing it on the site. You go to his discussion forum. It's like page 6 of this issue's up now, page 7 of this issue's up, and you read it page at a time. Surely somebody's collecting them somewhere.
There's this instrument called a printer.
Yes.
I'll bet you it's low res enough that it makes it so it's not sellable, but it's something you could print and read on the can,
Yes. Yes.
And there are techniques, if you got Photoshop, that you can take something that's low res and up it.
That's true. That's true.
Both of you guys know about that. I'm lucky to get, a slide presentation put together in PowerPoint. But it's wonderful. It's really cool stuff. You got to check it out, Mike. With that, guys, we're done, I think. Thank you both for coming on tonight. Been fun having you on. Chris, I always like having you on here. We had some great conversations, and I'm happy I got the opportunity to introduce you to I'm getting money. I'm getting money.
Well, while he gets his money, it's been nice meeting you, Michael. Really enjoyed it.
I'm glad I can introduce you guys together. No, I'm getting shipping money because now I'm going to be boxing up The Company Men, Red, Dead, White, and Blue, the book that
It looks beautiful.
This is the hardcover. I've got the other versions here, and again, it's from Kemosabe down in Australia. Folks, if you love this book, let him know, because this was pain for him to jump a lot of hurdles. First time creator, and for a first time creator, this has all the hallmarks of a veteran comic book writer and artist pulling through something that looks super professional. It looks like something you would have read in the 80s at a high caliber, with a high caliber team. Not
It's not a first time rookie.
Yeah, encourage him to continue on with this, because I want to see this one continue. I think this one's got the actual potential to really break out of this crowdfunding thing and become a big superhero hit. Last thing I want to go out with, and it's not a happy thing, but today we did lose George Perez. He is gone. I'm not an artist. I know that other artists are going to be surely drawing tributes to him. Chris, you can plug your ears if you want, because I don't want you making a commission for nothing. but I just have the image in my head of, you remember that Crisis issue where he had everybody there on the mountains and Superman's holding Supergirl? I have that image in my head flipped around. We're seeing them all from the back looking forward, except there's no holding Supergirl. It's just all those characters, and just like mountains and a sunset, and this giant beyond the mountains, just like God-sized giant, nothing but a pair of legs and Bermuda shorts and a big bright Hawaiian shirt hanging down over the hem, walking away into the clouds. People who are artists listening to that, take that and run with it. I've got that giant Teen Titans poster that he had out in the 80s. You probably had it in your store, Michael. I had to have that again. I'm glad I got it. It's hanging right there. One of my treasured possessions. So,
and we also lost Neil Adams here in the last couple of weeks too.
We did. Lost him this week, early this week. So two giants of the industry, just and very, very few replacements coming in the mainstream. Mm-hmm. Seeing a lot of really talented people in crowdfunding, but I'm not seeing them go to Marvel and DC, and that's I don't know. I don't think it's going to do well for the industry, but I don't care anymore. To be honest about the industry, I care more about the art form and what you guys are doing to keep it going. So with that, folks in the chat, appreciate you being here tonight. We don't have a show without you. And as always, while you were here, we just hope you had a blast. Good night.